Hello, everybody. Just gonna point this down here a little bit. So, hi, how's everybody doing today? For those of you who are new to the channel and to the podcast, thank you for tuning in. I am Kenny, otherwise known on the internet as the Dreaming Flame, and this is something entirely new to me. I normally don't like scripted things, so I tend to go away from podcasts where I do solo talks and things like that. But today I have a very particular issue that I figured was a good jumping point for something like this, even though I wanted to start my podcast off about talking about sports stuff. But here I am with my number one passion, which would be gaming. So, but first, before we do any of that, today I just want to let everybody in the community know, and just basically everybody on the internet to know, my thoughts are out with everybody in Florida right now. It's announced earlier today that Hurricane Ian is finally making landfall, and it looks like it's already like a really big deal, especially for those who are in Tampa Bay. So I just want to make a special concerted effort to let people know that my thoughts are with them, and take care of yourself and take care of others if you can. That's all I can say about that, without getting too involved in the discussion there, because there are a lot of thoughts in regards to that, but that's what social media is for, and I'm going to keep straight off of this. So yeah, as anybody who is currently involved in my social media or involved in my Discord will have known, I am going back to work next week. Been on leave of absence for a while, and as such, I've toned down my streaming in an effort to try and prepare myself for the return to work. It's going kind of well. My idea was to just stream when I can and when I feel like I'm up to it, and Twitch is making that difficult. Especially today, I was actually wanting to stream this so that way I can involve my viewers, as well as, posting it on YouTube and on Anchor and so on and so forth. However, they've made it so I can't do that. So, here I am on YouTube and Anchor, going straight to the source, and that's that, and just remove the possibility for anybody to join the conversation, unfortunately. But anyways, so I wanted to take a moment today to talk about the game that I've been playing as an effort to try and move myself to a better mindset. The game that I don't feel is particularly challenging, but not particularly super easy either. The game I'm talking about in question is Trials of Mana, and I've been playing I want to call it a remaster, because even though it's essentially been made from the ground up, it's still like a carbon copy of the original game. And my history with said game and said franchise is hit or miss. I've not been like a huge fan of the franchise, but I've also not been a fan of the franchise, if I'm being honest. It's really just been a matter of, does it come on my radar, and does it appeal to me at the moment? And I ended up getting Trials of Mana as a result of my PlayStation Plus Extra subscription. And I found that as a person who tried to play the game when a English patch released for the Super Nintendo copy of it, way back. I have no idea how far back it was, but I tried playing it once without the patch a long ass time ago, And again, when the patch was released. And I don't know, there was a lot less direction I found, especially without being able to read any of the text on screen. So I wasn't really able to get engaged, and I guess I carried that mentality forward into when the remaster released for Trials of Mana. And I didn't really get hyped on the game, but when it came to getting it for free, I was like, why not? So I jumped on the train, and it's been a pretty solid experience so far. Typical, like, mid-90s Japanese role-playing game fare, honestly, and I've been enjoying it moderately, but that expected experience is honestly exactly what I need right now. So, good times have been had. However, there's been, well, a couple of things that really kind of created a chip on my shoulder with this game. One of which being some of the scripting that was not modernized at all in regards to two particular characters. Actually, three if you want to be nitpicky about it. But one thing that I finally had the last straw in regards to today, and that was the class system in Trials of Mana. Now, when Trials of Mana, well, when it was dropped, at least as far as emulation was concerned, because of the fact that originally it didn't release in North America, so as a game for the Super Nintendo that came out and was the sequel to Secret of Mana, a game that I really liked, and it had the availability of a class system. That was the one thing that really kind of stood out to me. But when I tried to play it, and even when the English patch came out for it, I didn't really, like, I understood, but at the same time I didn't quite grasp how it worked. So at that time it was just like, whatever, man, I do not have the patience for this. And especially when the Japanese version was only available, it was one of those things where it wasn't quite like Bahamut Lagoon, where you can kind of just read a walkthrough and let it take you through the more linear parts of the game, or Front Mission or something like that, where you can get through some of the more linear stuff and just enjoy the gameplay and the combat. Trials of Mana didn't really have that. There was a lot of spots where you could just find yourself kind of going, what do I do? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? There was plenty of spots in like the first half of the game where you go into a town and you're supposed to talk to like 2-3 people or something like that in order to trigger the movement into like another section or something like that. And these people that you're supposed to talk to have zero identifying information to tell you who you might need to talk to next, or where you need to go, or anything like that. But you're still supposed to talk to these people, and oh my goodness, that's enough to make me want to pull my hair out. So, again, something I couldn't really get into, but when I came into it now, you have quest markers, you have a little map in the corner of the screen that helps guide you through the process. I mean, you can turn it off if you want a more authentic experience, but I've been really enjoying not scratching my head 95% of the time. Anyways, rolling back to this class system thing, it was one of the qualifying things that really got me, put this game on my radar to begin with. So, getting into this game, and two things being very clearly brought to my attention were the classes were integral to the plot, and also that getting to them would be much easier. Now, I should note, on the SNES copy, I have played through, I think, at least one instance of each of the 3 branching stories. However, with this particular version of the game, I've only played through the one with Duran as my main character. Now, I should note also that in doing so, it might skew my opinions to be said going forward. So if you have something to say, keep that in mind. However, so in going through this, you're at the, like, almost right at the beginning of the game, in the onset of, like, I'm pretty sure it's before you even get your additional characters, though I might be incorrect on that one. I'm not quite sure. My memory's not serving me too well, but before you get off to a good start, I'm almost positive it's before you get your third character. I'm not quite sure if it's before you get your second character or not. But you're pointed, go here. And the key to you being able to take on your first antagonist is changing your class. I'm not even exaggerating. You are actually told that changing your class is key. So you go here. I'm pretty sure they said, like, and again, this might be a script writing problem, but you were told that this person you're going to see in the Holy City Wendell will change your class, or he will at least enable you to change your class, or something along those lines. Like, you're pumped by this point on changing your class. You go to this guy, he can't change your class. Okay, that's fine, but maybe he can tell me where to go to change my class. Alright, fine. You know, he doesn't really directly say, hey, go here, do the thing, change your class. He doesn't really directly say that, but he leads you on the path to get there. Which is okay. So I figure, alright, seeing his classes are integral to the storyline, they told you right up front, hey, look, changing your class is going to help you defeat the antagonist. So I'm like, alright, you know what? So maybe I have to hit a few story beats before I change my class. And it wasn't quite so. Down the road, it was just basically saying to you, hey, look, here's the thing that allows you to change your class. Oh, that's right. You don't have the requirements. Wait, I'm sorry, what? Alright. What are the requirements? Do I have them? What do I need to do? What hoops do I need to go through in order to get my class changed? Alright. So it tells me that I need more experience, which means, okay, I need to grind levels out. How many do I need? No, don't know. If I hadn't looked at any guides or anything like that, I would have had no way to know until I hit the threshold, which in this particular case is level 18. That's basically how you change your first class. And you don't get told in-game until you hit level 18. So you could just be aimless. If your threshold for proceeding in the game is getting that class changed, like it was for me, because I was excited, I was pumped about a job/class system that changed abilities and actually allowed you to use abilities, because by that point I'd been stockpiling them. And yes, you were able to use them, but use more of them. Anyways. You would have had no way to know. You would have just been aimlessly grinding until you hit a point, and you would have not known that it would have told you, or how it would have told you, or how you would have went about it. You would have just been going out, coming back, going out, coming back, going out, coming back. If the game hadn't told me when I hit that threshold that would have... what do I do? What are the requisites? Could you just tell me? Could that be way too far out of the realm of possibility? Maybe, kind of, sort of. Well, hitting level 18 wasn't so bad, because by that point, that was really only a couple of levels. It told me, I went and I did the thing, and it was A-okay. Gave me access to a whole bunch of stuff that really I only needed to level up in order to access, and do some story stuff. Cool. Cool. Alright. So we're moving along, and I think back, oh yeah, there's multiple branching points, so I'm at least gonna be able to change classes another time. So I'm like, alright, so kind of like the job system that was present in Final Fantasy 1, where you go through a certain bit of story beats and you basically master your class, essentially. So like, alright, we've got branches, we've got possibilities. It's really trying to tailor to your playstyle. I get it. That's cool. So I'm excited about the point in which, by the point in which you get to change your class again. Now, in this version of the game, there's a total of 4 tiers. Your base class being your first tier. So when you change your class the first time, that's tier 2, and so on and so forth. And when when I got to the first introduction of your tier 2 class change, I was like, psyched. I was in the middle of the story beats by which you're gaining access to abilities through the story beats that I mentioned earlier. So I'm hitting one of the first bits in that chunk of the story, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way. Now, we'll tell you something. The threshold for actually getting to your tier 3 class change is level 38, and you need certain items. They're not really regular consumables, but they're items that you need in order to change your class. And these items are randomly dropped from enemies towards the end of the game. When you're first introduced, or when I was first introduced, rather, and I had grinded levels by this point, because I'm thinking the only threshold for changing classes is levels. And, I mean, old school JRPG, the way to just brute force things sometimes is to grind some levels out, and then grind out some money so that we can buy equipment. You know, just general, standard JRPG stuff. So I've got the motivation to move this, and I'm just kind of plowing through things, la-ti-da, and I'm introduced at level, I want to say 26 or 28, and I'm thinking, okay, it's telling me same thing as it was before. You don't have enough experience. Alright, you introduced me at close to 26 or 28, so I'm thinking, is it like last time where I only have to do like a few levels and it's just going to tell me? Well, I did that, and I did that, and I did that to the point where the one dungeon that I was in at the time was getting painfully easy. It was like a waste of time. There was no point in me staying in there, so it was like, well, okay, at what point is this going to happen? Like, I'm sitting here twiddling my thumbs, wasting my time, trying to get this figured out, and nothing was happening. So I did what I normally do in these situations, and if something doesn't make sense, I gotta look it up. So I looked it up, and the threshold was, like I said earlier, level 38. And actually, at that point, I did not hear about the class items, because I did not really look into it. I just saw you needed level 38, and I'm thinking, oh my god, I need another 10 levels? Are you kidding me? At the rate that I was moving levels along, it's like, I'm going to need another 10 levels, essentially, in order to get to this, and like, hey, okay, it's a level threshold. You're not supposed to do this until, or have access to abilities and access to certain bits of equipment and stuff like that until you're closer to the end of the game. That's fine. That is a okay, fine, hunky-dory thing. It sucks, but I'll get over it. So I'm continuing through the game, and just today I hit the threshold of 38. Now at this point, again, I did not hear about class items, and the requirements for The requirements were not expressly told to me. It just, when it was first introduced, and every point after that I would be able to change my classes, it was, you just don't have enough experience. So that implied to me, okay, the level threshold is all that's needed, and that's it. So it'll just tell me when I hit that threshold, and then the game, when I hit that threshold, that's when it took the time. No, actually, I didn't hit the threshold, or it did tell me when I hit the threshold, but it told me earlier than that. So when you get to a location that's called the Sanctuary of Mana, and I'm not going to tell you about it because it's spoiler territory, but there's a spot in there where you can change classes prior to a certain battle. And I'm like, okay, so it's a story beat, so you're supposed to be this level in and around this part of time. I'm only a couple of levels out. This is good. It's integral to the story, yet again. Alright, now's the time. I'm just going to go back, I'm going to get a couple of levels, and we're good. No, we weren't. And it took that time without absolutely any queuing whatsoever. It just basically said, here's the spots where you can save, except for this one's special. You can change classes here. But here are the requirements. And there's more than just levels required. And I'm sitting here dumbfounded, going, well, okay, this would have been nice for you to tell me beforehand. And I'm thinking, well, okay, was there a point to telling me beforehand? And it didn't really register until I hit that 38 threshold, and it told me what kinds of items were required and how I go about obtaining them. The way you obtain these items is they're drops from enemy mobs in close to end game dungeons. So there's a series of 8 dungeons towards the end of the game, and then one on top of that once all of those 8 dungeons are completed. And right through, as you're playing through those 8 dungeons, these drop from random enemy mobs. And it's not just enough for them to drop. No. You have to go and get them. Well, they drop as question mark seeds. And then you have to plant the seeds and they become an item. And you have no idea until you go to an inn somewhere. You have no idea which class item you're going to get. So if you were to go out and find an area that's rich in these things, and you start hammering them out, you don't know if you should stop or if you should keep going until you get to an inn and you identify these, essentially. In case you're watching this on, or listening to this on Anchor or Spotify or wherever else it puts it, I am incredulous. I can't get over how mind-blowing that whole concept is. Why it's necessary, that stopgap there. And so, to answer the earlier point, would it have been even helpful to tell me about these requirements earlier? And the answer is no, because you wouldn't have had access to any of these items that you would have needed, and the process would have just been ridiculous if you had been told about these requirements early on when you're first introduced to the Tier 3 class change. So now I'm going through the story beats and I'm actually looking things up and learning myself on the process for this, and it turns out the first couple of endgame dungeons, you don't even run into these question mark seeds very often at all. So there's no point of even going through and trying to, farm them out. You are essentially just advised to play through as you normally would, and they'll just come to you, essentially. So there's no way to cheat it out or farm them out until you're about halfway through the dungeons, at which point you're halfway through the dungeons. Like, is there even a point? But yeah, so the question becomes, for me, at this point, is why introduce the Tier 3 class change so freaking early? Because if you know anything about me at all as a JRPG player, the one way to hook me, there are two major ways to hook me. Either introduce a deep job system, or introduce a deep customization system. So like with something where with Final Fantasy 6 or 7 is a great example, where there's not really a job or class system really, but there's a pretty in-depth customization system through the use of espers and materia, for example. Or Final Fantasy X is a really good example too, with a sphere grid. It allows any of your characters to become whatever you want. You can tailor them to your playstyle. So if you can't have jobs, at least you can tailor things much in the way that you would with a job system through that way. Now, it's felt up to this point like this game has been dangling a carrot over my head. Not with plot, not with skill tests or anything of that nature, but with this class system. It's been dangling that carrot in front of my face, and it's been pushing me along. And I don't like it. Like, by the time I'm going to be able to get this class change, I'm going to be through most of the game. Or at least from my understanding of it. So at that point, it's like, let me put it to you this way. This Tier 3 class change is supposed to be a big deal. There's a whole 4th tier above that. Now, I haven't even looked into the requirements for the Tier 4 class change yet. I briefly skimmed over them. From my understanding, it's another rarer item that you need to get and a different level that you need to be at in order to access. However, if I can get through most of the game, like roughly, let's say 75% of the game, only having changed my class once, why the hell would I go through Tier 4 for any other reason than completion and it looks cool? Like, I haven't been... Well, okay, there was one boss that was a difficulty ramp. I can't remember the name of it now. It's some stupid name, but basically it was like a door. a like, possessed door. And it was just absolutely insane. It was really bad in the Super Nintendo version, too. But outside of that boss in particular, the game hasn't really, like, shook me in terms of challenges or difficulty or anything of that nature. It's just been a fairly standard JRPG experience. And I just... I feel like a 4th tier should be the thing that you get towards the 75% to 90% mark. Maybe something you get for the last dungeon and makes the dungeon a little, like the final dungeon, a little bit easier to handle. and the tier 3 should be like right at about the 60 to 70% mark, like just after you've gotten halfway, your plot twists are out of the way, and then you're rewarded for making the part. And the first tier should just be there to introduce you to, or I'm sorry, second tier class change should be there to just introduce you to class changes and show you how it works and show you what do. And I feel like this how they've paced the class changes here is absolutely just asinine. And it's literally one of my only, like, hang-ups with this game. Like, it got to the point where I had to put the game down, move away, do something else, and just be like, disavow my experience for the day. Just be like, yeah, you know what, it's been fairly standard, but I thought there was this thing that really would make it stand out and really kind of give worth to the experience so far. And, you know, a point of accomplishment or something like that. And it'll still be there because now I'm in it. I'm going to complete the game just for, you know, completion's sake at this point. But yeah, I'm not doing it for, like, job system stuff anymore, or class system rather. It's gonna be it's gonna be interesting how I feel going forward. But yeah, so that's it. That's my rant on the class system. Really needed a redo in terms of pacing. Really needed a redo. And considering all the modernization that they've given to everything else, like the quest markers, for example, I don't even think I would make it through this game without the quest markers. And getting through would literally require a guide being in front of me. That's how it's gotten at some points. The quest markers make that massively easier. Some of the, or actually a lot of the bosses in the boss arenas are changed in ways to reflect, you know, how combat has changed, and it's made them a little bit more manageable in some cases. It plays very much like an MMO where all of the like major attacks and abilities and stuff like that leave little patterns on the floor or on the ground, so you can actually see where the area of effect is. That's super handy, with one exception, but that's a different topic for a different day that I actually talked about on my Twitter quite extensively. I just this is one of the big systemic things in the game that really could have used the modernization and wouldn't have hurt the plot too much if it was balanced well. And it didn't get touched, and I feel like the game could have been much better for it. But here we are, I guess. So, again, not terrible game. I'm not saying any of these things to really kind of trash on it or anything, but just saying, hey, look, here's an absolutely marvelous game that I've been really enjoying for the fact that it's not trying to be anything. It's not. It's just, it's this hyper-concentrated remaster of a old-school JRPG, and here's this one thing that's just really disappointing and annoying and really pissed me off today. So there's that. So, yeah, I guess this seems like a good place to kind of cut it off. And so, again, thank you again. I will be back here at some point to talk again, probably first about hockey and then about F1, because F1 is coming back and NHL preseason is coming into play. So good times. Already had one game down, and things are looking good. DOPS is already hot on everybody's tails, so that's a talking point. But yeah, so expect to see a little bit more from me. I'm not really planning on scheduling anything. It's really just kind of when I have the time and when I have the energy and when there's a subject to talk about, I'll try and do this. I'm hoping to include Starberry, my partner, in some of these recordings. Hopefully we can do streams, but we shall see. We shall see how that goes. But yeah, so thank you for tuning in. I will keep everybody posted on social media when I plan on doing it again. So, and if you subscribe to me on Twitch, which again, I'll be the Dreaming Flame there as well. If you subscribe to me on Twitch, I do plan on streaming there for all of my broadcasts, if possible, or until I make a change over to YouTube. We'll see how that goes. So, have a good day, stay safe, and take care of yourself. Bye. TDF out.